Hello, welcome to today's episode of our podcast series on energy, livelihood and climate change in East Africa. I'm your host, Emmanuel Lwankomezi, a lecturer and a researcher at St. Augustine University of Tanzania. Today we focus on issues at heart of daily life across our region, which is charcoal. In this episode of Charcoal and Livelihood, I'm joined by an outstanding guest from Tanzania. We have Professor Opportuna Kweka, Associate Professor in Human Geography at the University of Dar es Salaam. Our work focuses on governance of human-environment interaction, especially around energy, livelihood, displacement, and policy. As you know, welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much.
As you know, charcoal is more than just a fuel for millions of households in Tanzania. It is a lifeline providing cooking energy, income, and jobs. But it also carries heavy costs like deforestation, climate change, pressure, health risks, and complex policy dilemma. Now, as an expert in charcoal and environmental interaction, how and why do many Tanzanian households continue to depend on charcoal for both income and cooking energy?
Thank you very much. For many Tanzanians, the primary cooking energy is charcoal, where about 60 to 70% of the households in urban areas, they depend on charcoal, and also those in peri-urban areas, they use charcoal daily for cooking. Charcoal is also demanded energy for big cities such as Dar es Salaam, Dodoma, and Arusha. And it's normally produced in the rural, where the people cut trees, and then they make charcoal earth kilns, and sell it through traders and transporters to urban markets. For rural household, charcoal production is one of the few accessible ways to also earn income. And charcoal is sold in small, affordable quantities, in tins or in sacks, which actually match the daily income of these poor households and their budgets. And they use for many reasons. One is the economic reason. Charcoal is affordable. It's alternative to electricity, biogas, or LPG. When you look at it, it's very, very, very cheap compared to these three. It's also a form of employment. So charcoal production, there are people get income in transporting. There are also people getting income, the borders. And trade provide income for hundreds and thousands, especially in the rural areas. It's also available in the market. While most of the clean alternatives that we talk, clean energy alternatives that we talk about are not reliable in supply, and they're also scarce. There is also infrastructure challenge, which makes people use charcoal. One is the lack of electricity, especially in the rural areas, and some urban areas also are lacking electricity, but also limited supply of LPG. So most of the rural areas, they lack this access to the affordable and modern energy options. But the other important factor is actually a social-cultural factor. Most people prefer to use charcoal because some people talk about being able to control the heat when they cook, especially rice. But when you cook rice, the Swahili way of cooking rice, we also put burning charcoal on top of the rice. We put a tin and then on top of the rice, so the rice will dry very well. And some people like the hard part, which is dried. We call it ukoko. So there are people who are really fond of ukoko. In Tanga, I'm told when you cook rice, you have to keep some ukoko for your husband. It's also a cultural practice to show love to your husband. But in our case, for example, in Kilimanjaro, we use charcoal to burn goat. We roast the goat. The goat is roasted as it is. They just put charcoal from morning to evening, especially when we have a wedding. It's we have this goat cake, and you will find it very common in many of the Chaga weddings. So households have really accustomed to these charcoal stoves, and it's difficult to switch from this behavior. Other things that we love to use, nyama choma, as you all know, but also roasted maize, which people don't have alternatives for those. And the other thing that makes really use of charcoal increase is the urbanization, where high population in the urban area depends on demands for charcoal is actually growing. There are also issues which have to do with policy and governance. Because of the weak enforcement, regulations against illegal charcoal production are not very consistently enforced. There is also lack of incentives to promote clean cooking energy. So that is a policy gap, but we also have people relying on informal economy mostly, and charcoal is part of the product that is coming out of the informal economy. That's all what I can say about how and why people in Tanzania depend on charcoal.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Now let's focus on the impacts of charcoal and trade-offs. Now, what are the social, environment, and the health consequences of charcoal dependency in Tanzania?
There are a number of social, environmental, and health consequences of charcoal. When we look at the social consequences, we can talk about the time that women are using to prepare food, because they have to bleed the charcoal and then make sure, and you have to, from time to time, you're supposed to be there adding the charcoal so that you make sure the food is getting ready. But it's also not a safe way of cooking. So those are some of the social consequences. But we can talk about mostly environmental consequences, where because of the unsustainable harvesting of the charcoal, there is deforestation and forest degradation, which is associated again with loss of biodiversity and wildlife. And this also causes soil erosion and declining soil fertility and agriculture productivity. Charcoal production also releases carbon dioxide, so it actually contributes to climate change. And in the long run, of course, we know it distracts the water cycle, so we can link water scarcity and global warming to charcoal production, and low rainfall or unreliable rainfall, which can actually lead to desertification in some areas, and ultimately food insecurity and displacement of people when they can't continue living in those areas. But we also have health issues associated with use of charcoal, because most of it is burnt indoors. So the indoor pollution caused by smoking that is coming out of charcoal, especially in areas which are poor ventilated, can actually lead to I would say airborne diseases, respiratory illness, asthma, and acute respiratory infections. It therefore increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases from if people inhale the smoke for a long time. But it can also cause hazards. Burning, houses can be burnt, but also people can get injuries because of the cooking stoves. So it's not even a good, I would say, a good product to use maybe with children. We have to be careful. There are also economic stress out of the cost of the charcoal, and mental and social strains that are associated as health issues as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, as you've mentioned that there is social, environment, and health consequences, it seems this one brings us to a dilemma. Now, how do communities balance these trade-offs?
Yeah, the community balance the trade-off by providing alternative livelihood, especially to those who youths and women who are depending on this as a form of livelihood, but as also a form of income, but also a form of energy, and promote charcoal value chains in order to improve the efficiency and the loss, and support women in order to ensure transition. Okay. But we can also, policy-wise, develop clear, enforceable regulations for sustainable charcoal production and support community so that they can manage and do sustainable harvesting, and also sometimes introduce incentives, tax incentives, and subsidize communities so that they can afford clean energy. Creating public awareness campaigns on health issues, encourage better ventilated cooking areas, and promote gender-sensitive energy policies is other social and health intervention that we can actually come up with, and talk about agroforestry, tree planting, and integrate charcoal policy in the broader climate and natural resource management strategies.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now let's move to energy transition and alternatives. Now, Prof, what realistic pathway exists for reducing charcoal dependence while protecting local livelihood?
Yeah, some of the realistic pathways can be mid-term, long-term, or short-term. In the short term, we can improve energy-saving stoves, which are using low energy in order to increase efficiency, but also reduce the use of trees. We can also talk about managing woodlots, which can be renewable charcoal. We can ensure renewable charcoal supply, but also formulate and regulate charcoal value chain, so producers can earn wages and but also have green practices. Diversification of rural livelihoods, clean energy access, and urban energy transitions are very important, and also policy interventions. Thank you. Okay, so if I can expand the pathways, we can actually divide it into maybe 5 pathways, 5 major ones. One is sustainable charcoal production. Another one is diversification of rural livelihoods. Another one is clean energy access. And another one is urban energy transition and policy and institutional support. I will give details on these ones. On the sustainable charcoal production, I think we need to introduce improved charcoal kilns. Okay, this will increase efficiency and also reduce the tree use. But another strategy another pathway under sustainable charcoal production is to promote sustainably managed woodlots and agroforest systems so that we can have a continuous supply of charcoal or renewable supply of charcoal. And the third one under the sustainable charcoal production is to formalize and regulate the charcoal value chain so producers can earn fair wages under safe and green practices. So if I can also add here under sustainable charcoal production, we may also think about employing some of these youth in planting trees so that they can actually be able to generate trees which can also be used for energy. The second one, as I said, is to try and diversify the rural livelihoods. So the example I gave you of youth in tree planting could be one of the examples where we diversify rural livelihoods so they don't depend on charcoal mostly, but they can actually do the green projects of planting trees. But if we support the rural farmers to combine agriculture with agroforestry, it's possible to get also fuel wood from the and timber and charcoal from this forestry. If we provide training and microcredit so that they can venture into other income generating activities, that could also diversify the rural population that is engaging in this charcoal making as a form of livelihood. So beekeeping, poultry, ecotourism, small scale processing could be some of the projects that we introduce, which the rural population can actually venture into and leave the charcoal. We have, of course, nowadays carbon crediting. We can link the rural population to tree planting and sustainable fuel production through these carbon credit schemes. So it's just a matter of redesigning the carbon credits and not necessarily following what everybody else is doing. The third one in this third pathway that we can take is the cleaner energy access. So we can ensure access to gas, LPG, which may be subsidized because the cost is high, but I was also talking about try to come up with innovative ways, for example, reducing the containers, the cylinders, so that we can have maybe cylinders that are cheaper, 10,000, 2,000, if it's 1 kg, 2 kg, because these people are buying charcoal in small quantities because they get their daily payment is also very small. But other alternative ways could be biogas and access to briquettes, ethanol, and solar cookers. So through subsidizing the income of these people, they may be able to install solar or other biogas, which initial installation is expensive, but later on it's a lifetime. Maybe it will be just servicing, but it's a lifetime kind of investment, which we can get it through public and private partnership. We can also encourage locally made biomass briquettes from agriculture waste, from cobs, from coffee husks, and provide affordable substitutes. I've seen also women in urban areas who are collecting waste and making briquettes out of waste and be able to use them as a form of energy. Other ways we can support is through financing models so that people can actually afford cooking stoves that are for clean energy. For example, if we give women or households gas cylinder to pay monthly for 12 months, so they can, if there are some households that are suffering from being able to do the initial purchase of the cylinder. But we can also go through, for example, in Tanzania we have Vikoba. Women in this Vikoba can be, we can create awareness in the Vikoba so that women can also contribute to each other to move from energy that is not clean to cleaner energy. Vikoba is a source of income for many women, so if they could say they support their colleagues to be able to buy even the cylinder themselves through the Vikoba, that could also be a model. But I know Tanzania, we also have special funds for women and youth that can also be channeled to see ways in which they can help and allow for energy transition. Electrification of both urban and rural areas is very important for those who want to venture towards use of electricity, or at least combining electricity and the other forms of clean energy. Also, we need to establish policies that will actually allow people to move and reduce charcoal use. For already in Tanzania, we've started with institutions that are in the institutions. they are now not allowed to use charcoal, which is one step ahead. But we need to move now to household level. So the main challenge is in the household. So if we are able also to find ways in which we can do households in other communities, that will be very important. And finally, the policy and institutional support are needed. For example, if we can introduce even high taxes, because as I said earlier, you will see that if you look at the acts, the Forest Act, it talks about the fines that people are charged when they're found with charcoal. I think they range from 100,000 to 200,000 Tanzanian shillings, which I think is very small compared to the cost that this activity or this practice of charcoal harvesting and selling is causing on the environment and the economy in general. So strengthening of community forest management can also allow community to harvest charcoal sustainably. But we can also think about issues of climate justice, inclusion of women in decision making, so that they can actually share their challenges of energy and be able to take part in decision making and solutions, finding solutions together with the policymakers and other actors who are interested in reducing charcoal and dealing with climate change challenges. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. You have highlighted on the policy and laws. I would like you to expand more, especially on when the government gets revenue from charcoal production or charcoal selling, and how do we balance that? Because the government gets money from the charcoal, and also how do we balance between income and protecting environment?
I think one of the challenges that I see, which I should have said earlier as well, is that we have TFS, which is supposed to take care of the forest, but over times, ever since it was introduced, I think they have put themselves mainly on charging or getting the fines, but already the forests are destroyed. I think one thing is to make sure we protect rather than embrace the revenue, because the revenue are small, but the damage that is caused by the environment is huge. But even with the few revenue that we are getting, I think we should find ways of creating funds which will be given, should I say, as a reward or as for those who are ready to move to alternative and clean energy, to be able to be supported by the government. I think this will act as an incentive to especially those who are in the production and selling, and also the household that are using, to move to so subsidizing costs of some of the things. So by using the revenue that is actually accrued from when the people are caught with forest products or that are not allowed, or illegal timber or charcoal production are charged.
Thank you so much, Prof. We are coming to the end of this episode. Today, we explored how charcoal shapes livelihood in Tanzania as a source of income, energy, and cultural identity, but also as a driver of deforestation, health risks, and policy conflicts. We heard how charcoal are often trapped in how households are often trapped in charcoal dependence, how policy can sometimes harm the vulnerable while protecting the elites, and how inclusive governance and the realistic alternative can offer a way forward. The lesson is clear: moving beyond charcoal will require not just technology, but justice, participation, and sensitivity to local realities. Thank you so much, Professor Opportuna Kweka, for sharing your expertise. And thank you, our listener, for joining us. Please share your feedback and stay tuned for our next episode, where we continue unpacking the dilemma of cooking energy and climate change in East Africa. Until then, goodbye.